welcome to 832 Sips,
a podcast where we talk about issues and challenges in education today.
So grab a beverage of your choice and enjoy the conversation.
Right on. Okay, today's guest is Nancy Smith. And Nancy, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Well, like said, my name is Nancy Smith, and I met Curtis, Dean, and Mateo while attending grad studies at the University of Regina, where I'm a student. And I live in Calgary. And a little bit about me. So what's different about me is I'm actually a marketer, and I've been a marketer for 25 years. I've had a career in marketing in various roles. And it was about 10 years ago that I started instructing. So I'm an instructor at the University of Calgary and at Mount Royal University here in Calgary as well. And I teach marketing, communications, and social media classes. And I decided to pursue my grad studies just to enhance my my ability to teach better, and especially facilitating online. And in addition, I work at the City of Calgary, and I lead their digital communications and their social media strategy and implementation, which is really great. I love that. And most importantly, I'm a mom to a great 14, almost 15-year-old. That's me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nancy. We're super excited to have you as our third guest on our podcast. You just bring such a great perspective, and it's different than just talking to teachers. And I know it kind of fills us in and on how we're using social media elsewhere and just the possibilities for it. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Right on. Okay, well, maybe just as a conversation starter. So like you work with the City of Calgary, and you said you do marketing. So maybe, Nancy, can you talk about maybe some of the ways that you think like technology can enhance like those positions with a focus on learning or whatever you think is interesting?
Well, a big part of my role is communications and making sure that people have timely communications. And what we've noticed in the last 5 years is a massive switch from how people consume media. So in the past, maybe we'd turn on the radio and television and wait for updates on the news at 5 o'clock or 11 o'clock or in the morning. And now people are conditioned to, want the information when they want it and how they want it. And so they're turning to mediums like Facebook and Twitter, even Instagram, to find out information that matters. So the City of Calgary really shifted, as did practically every organization, to providing the right message at the right time to the people who care. So that's something that I really care about, is using social media effectively. And I don't think it really matters if it's in the classroom or for personal use. We have all shifted to technology more and more every day, and how people tend to use it is like first and foremost to connect to friends and family, but I think also to learn. So, I always find it amazing when I tell people about, how, they'll say, oh, I don't use social media. And I'm like, oh, do you ever watch videos on YouTube? And, oh yeah, I watch videos on YouTube. And I'm like, well, actually YouTube is considered social media. And the number 2 search engine in the world is YouTube. So when you're searching something to learn how to fix a dripping tap or how to stake a tomato plant as you're growing it this summer, those are all things that people are trying to learn. And YouTube has become an amazing resource, an open source resource for people to learn.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that you kind of mentioned on too is like kind of at the start there when you were talking about Instagram and Twitter and Facebook as mediums for us to kind of learn more about the world around us. What I'm finding really interesting, and I think you looked at it a little bit in our grad studies too, Nancy, is like how big TikTok has become, and using that as a marketing tool, and especially and like we did a lot of talking about like not marketing towards kids and things like that, but like a platform like TikTok, kind of find, and you feel free to disagree with me, but I kind of find like that platform is made for teens and youth to some degree, and that has a lot of potential for marketing, I think.
Yeah, there's no question. I know that I think I started using TikTok. Well, what's interesting is, oh, here comes the ghost behind me, the dog. I started using Musical.ly, and it was because of my son when he was 13. And then it morphed, of course, into and was bought out by TikTok. And so I've been on TikTok more as like just to try and figure it out. And over the last year, I think that it has significantly changed, especially in the last 6 months. So 6 months ago, I think the average age of a TikTok user was 14. And that was the stats out at Christmas. And I bet you if TikTok were to reveal, but they don't as commonly as Twitter or Facebook, their usage stats, I bet you the average age has increased to at least 19 or 20, because I know you know how the algorithm works, but if your listeners don't know, what happens when you start watching videos on TikTok, and if you like a video, they'll start serving you other videos like that. And one thing that I get served is all the people who say that they're over 30. And so all I see are dog videos and people over 30. But I think that you're totally right that some brands or some companies are using TikTok really, really effectively. And the ones who will succeed are the ones who don't blatantly market to you, but more subtly talk about it. So lots of good examples. Like one, I think there's a lot of dermatologists out there or beauty companies that are talking about how to use their products or how to improve your skin if that's something you care about. Or for that matter, I follow a house cleaning company because obviously with the COVID crisis, my house cleaner, who I loved and can't come anymore. So I've had to, I know, poor me, clean on my own. But they do how to do cleaning on TikTok. And they're like the best videos. Actually, they started on Instagram stories and have exploded in popularity. And this little Instagram account that had 1,000 followers at Christmas now has 200,000 followers. And it's like a local Calgary company.
Yeah, it's crazy, like the potential that TikTok has for marketing, and it's so insidious because like we don't want to feel like we're watching a commercial anymore, right? So like TikTok is just all embedded, like you make a funny video or whatever, like you said about the cleaning company. Has anyone figured out how to use TikTok in the classroom? I don't think there's any application. Like I can't figure it out. I can't figure out a way to actually use it to learn. Like it's more like just entertainment. What do you think, Nancy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to see. I have seen more teachers on it, and they use the, a hashtag TikTok teacher. I think it really comes down to trying to connect with your students in a meaningful way. And for some, it's relatability, right? Like that's one of the superpowers of how we can connect to our students as instructors and teachers. And, if they see us like, whether it's super cringeworthy and, they're kind of laughing at us, that's okay too. Because I think that they almost think like, oh, that's all right, as long as we're not creeping on them.
Yeah.
But I think, I've seen some teachers do some science experiments or demonstrating things or like how to solve a math equation on TikTok really effectively. And I'm not saying that like my son is seeking those out, but I don't think he doesn't scroll through too fast. I think if he saw something interesting.
Yeah. I was reading some research the other day, just related to what I'm doing, but I read that basically like kids between the age of 10 and 13, like in that age range, by the time you get to the 13-year-olds, like 75% of them are on Instagram. And like they say like basically kids, they're using it for entertainment, to connect with friends, to watch funny videos, but there's not a lot of like learning applications. Although I really agree with you when you're talking about like just building a relationship with students and like using like say TikTok for that, like just to be out there and for them to see you. Because if you don't have a good relationship, then I think it's hard to teach,
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of segues into the next question that you got there for Curtis. Like, you want to breach that one?
Perfect. Before we get into that, I saw Dean unmute his mic about 3 or 4 times and he wasn't able to get a word in. Dean, did you have anything to add before we move on?
Well, I was just going to say, in our class, right, Alex showed that video of that one teacher in Ontario, how she was connecting and doing her stretches and all that. I don't know, Mateo, you were in part of the class, maybe you didn't see it, but there are a lot of teachers that are trying to tap into that and just, show a way to connect and to do that. But I was going to ask Nancy kind of, and also preview a little bit of the debate we might have in the future. Is it bad for kids to be able to do this? And the other thing, do you think if there's too many 30-year-olds on TikTok, will TikTok become passe like Twitter for a younger generation?
Or Facebook, like how it's just everybody's grandmother or whatever on Facebook now. And like if you ask kids, they're like, oh no, I don't use Facebook.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. It's
The
interesting.
boomers are the kiss of death.
Totally. Yeah, the minute your mom goes on, it's kind of like you become uncool. I noticed my son actually, he did, like, one of the aspects about social media that I love is creativity. And I've always enjoyed watching what my son can pump out in terms of like a fun, he likes to dance and the singing. So TikTok was made for him. But I commented with an emoji on one of his videos. And of course, the next thing I know, it came down. And I'm like, oh, did I embarrass you? But so I think as parents, we have to be super sensitive of like why your kids are on it. And he's of age, he can use TikTok fine. He's 14, almost 15. I think that the one platform that has eluded parents and older people is Snapchat. And I know that he's still really active on Snapchat with his friends. So I think that TikTok right now is experiencing a huge increase in usage. And I do think that some of the kids will start like thinking it's not as fun, and they'll probably morph more over to Snapchat again. Or the other important thing to know is like how kids use social media is really, really different than how we use it. So a lot of kids use it for the messaging capabilities rather than posting anything. Whereas my Instagram, I absolutely share photos of things that I care about, and when I go for hikes or my garden. And I have a whole history of however many years I've been on Instagram. For him, he'll post one picture and then remove it. And then maybe 6 months later, post another picture and then remove it. So they don't use it for that historical timeline.
That's super interesting. I'm glad you kind of pointed out. I think lots of times we always think that people use social media in the same way that we do, and especially as educators, I think it's important that we recognize those differences, especially if we are promoting the use of responsible use, I guess, of social media, and just kind of be mindful of the different ways to use it. So yeah, thank you so much for pointing that out. I think, we should probably move on to our next piece here. So I know this is a little bit the opposite question of the debate. And so since it's over, I am curious on your thoughts on this. In what ways do you think technology can be detrimental to learning?
Yeah, it was this week, Curtis is referring to a debate that we did in our grad class, and I was on the pro side, and a couple of students were on the against side. And I have to say they did a really, really good job of pointing out some of the challenges. So first and foremost, I think that like technology can be detrimental if a teacher doesn't use it effectively. So if they're using it just as a stopgap or replacement without really explaining the benefit or the power of it, or purposefully using it, I think it can be detrimental. I think it can also be detrimental if teachers don't fully understand what the technology is. And I think a lot of teachers have a resistance to using technology because of their own comfort level. So whether it's something like Seesaw or for that matter, any of the other programs that we've been learning about, I always feel at the start of a semester when we meet new students in our grad classes, about half the class is very pro-technology, and then the other half is there to learn, but they're somewhat resistant. And we definitely have that in this semester as well, which is well and good because it keeps us, balanced for those of us who are very pro. But I think there's other issues that I'm certainly concerned about that I know that you guys are very familiar because of your school boards and districts, and that would be around privacy, around the commercialization of technology, like what programs are allowed, or is Google allowed or not. And yeah, I think just being very aware that like just because it's free, is it really free? What's the cost? And typically it is user data.
Yeah, those are excellent points. I know in our school division, privacy is a huge thing. And just kind of making sure that how do you communicate those privacy concerns with parents that don't necessarily have the background in tech that we do? So I definitely understand that point for sure.
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Dean, you go ahead.
I just that's a kind of a question for you. I've heard a quote before that says, teachers that use technology will replace those who don't use technology. So as a mom and a parent, and from your perspective, like, are you happy, like, say your son, for example, has a teacher that's infusing technology in the classroom so he can become familiar with how to learn, create, and connect? Or does it matter to you whether or not they have that a child has a chance to explore with technology?
Oh, it absolutely matters to me. As a parent, like, so with my son being in grade 9 and during this pandemic, his grade 9 class is split. He has a teaching pair, and one is pro technology and one is not. And I can tell you that I can see it in his experience of which classes he's more engaged in and which ones he's just doing because she's giving worksheets or multiple choice quizzes. Like, she's doing kind of probably the bare minimum of what I would consider engaging. But it's what she can do right now because it's just not her, it's not her background, it's not her comfort level. And I can't help but think, like, talk about, are we ever studying the right thing at the right time? We are at this unique place in life where it was forced upon students. And it's a shame. I was actually just asking my son, I'm like, what happened to your option classes? Like, right now he only has to take the core subjects. And he said, well, I think some are, we could still kind of tap into. Some of them have put worksheets that we could download. But like, that to me, again, is like the very basics of online learning. It's actually why I started doing grad studies. Was when I moved to online teaching at the university, all I was taught was how to use the learning platform, which for us is D2L. And basically I was told, just upload your PowerPoints, upload a quiz, and your students will progress, and like check in on the discussion boards, and that's about it. And I thought, like, there's got to be more. Like, that can't be, it's not the same teaching experience. And I think teachers on the other side must really be missing kids in the classroom. Like how I felt when I first moved to online teaching, is like, there's just not that same relationship. So I don't know, but in the last year and a half since I've been taking online and blended learning and learning techniques, or even how we as students communicate using Zoom or Twitter, I've incorporated using those in my own teaching. And it's just such a richer experience for everybody. Students seem to like it, and I certainly, as an instructor, get much more value. And let's face it, that's why I teach.
Yeah, that's huge. And I know I'm in a position where I don't have students, but I know all of my peers who do, and I'm sure Mateo and Dean could probably echo that is the part, just that face-to-face communication is a big piece. But I feel like I don't necessarily know if there's a way that we can replicate that face-to-face connection, but I think that there are ways that we can make I don't want to say schoolwork. We can make online learning engaging for kids through different means. And I know Dean and Mateo have both done that very well in what they have done.
Well, and I think what we have in common is we're working with older kids, and certainly I teach adults. But like, I can't imagine trying to teach kindergarten or like under grade 6 right now. I think it could be hard.
Absolutely. And like, I know lots of the teachers that I'm working with, there's so much parent involvement that is needed. Just, like it's a lot of, assisting, getting them online. And, like, I think lots of those skills will come over time, but just like how you learn to tie your shoes or write your name, like it takes practice, and that's kind of the same skills here. So for sure.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably a whole nother topic, but like, there's no solid like framework or curriculum for all those digital citizenship skills and digital literacy skills? Like teachers are hitting them in general. Like the research I've been looking at lately, like yeah, like they talk a little bit about privacy, but there's no, you know, like there's Ribble's 9 elements, but lots of people don't know about them. And you know, like some people are doing it in grade 3, some people are getting it from their grade 5 teacher. Like in my division, I know there's a grade 7, 8 teacher who like covers this stuff amazing. Like he just does it on his own. There's no curriculum, but and maybe this is sort of a segue into the next question, but like Nancy, we know you got a book. Like maybe you could tell us more about that book and how it relates to learning and classrooms and social media.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I'll tell you why I wrote the book. And that was my son came home from school and he had attended a school session with a social media expert. And they were kind of talking about all the dangers of the internet. And there was just, you know, my son called me to check me in. And at the end of the day, like he always did. And when he told me that, and he told me all the things, and he was kind of shamed for being on Instagram. The speaker made them stand if they were on Instagram, etc. And I thought, like, okay, that's an interesting approach. Like, so we're kind of scaring kids into like social media isn't all that good. And I asked him, did he point out any of the positives? Like, nope. So I was like, okay. So there was a parent session and he told me I should go. And of course I did. And I listened for like 2 hours to the speaker. And while every single thing that speaker said was true, you know, there are some dark sides to the internet and we should be cautious and aware of what our kids are doing, and things can go badly. I think we just have to also be super aware that there's always another side. And so after listening to this for 2 hours, I went online and I was really annoyed. I'm like, why can't I find any positive resources? Like everything is skewed so negatively in the media, whether it's screen time is a bad thing. And, you know, one of my favorite authors, Simon Sinek, compared screen time to cocaine addiction. And I'm like, what? Like, it's not the same. Or, you know, and on it went, that I was really forced into, I started a Facebook group, and it grew really quickly of people being like, yes, I would love to hear more about this positive side. Or can you know firsthand because you work in this, tell me what's okay and what's not okay, or tell me what to be aware of as a parent. And so I started speaking at events on this too. It was like a really timely topic. And so I wrote the book as a resource for people when I, you know, as a leave behind. And one of the key things that I find is there's a really big tension point between like a kid's appetite to be online, you know, whether it's to watch videos on YouTube when they're younger, or to communicate with their friends as they get older, or to create content of their own, whether it's photos or videos, again, as they kind of get older. And this real uncomfortable gap between parents' knowledge of social media. So a lot of people might use Facebook, but, you know, quite often I talk to people and they're like, oh, I don't use any social media at all. So when you have that tension between an unknown, you know, as parents, we want to bubble wrap our kids and protect them and make sure that they're safe. And when we hear in the media that this is unsafe, our natural instinct is to deny it or to say no. When in fact, I think like each of us could probably come up with a couple of tangible examples of why social media can be positive. For me, simply put, I think that social media is not going away, nor is technology. And the more that we can model and teach our kids how to use it responsibly and to make great connections and to find ways to be inspired and learn, the better that they'll be set up for the future. And I think, you know, that's what I'm trying to do as a mom, but also I'm trying to help other parents understand as well.
Hey, I have a kind of a question that popped up when we were kind of going through that is, where do you, so like, I know there's lots of teachers and there's lots of parents out there, that, like you said, they don't use social media and they don't want to, they're either have, you know, the fear of it or that sort of thing. If parents want to get more involved or get more knowledge on that, where is a starting point for them? Like, how do they get into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I find that so there's two types. There's actually three types of parents. There are the ones who are like enablers, and so they kind of give their kids a phone because they were either maybe guilted into it because all their friends have phones, or maybe they're like at the right age, they're 13 and they get a phone, but their parents just kind of give it to them and like hope for the best. And they don't really talk to their kids about, use or what would be appropriate or not appropriate. And they really don't know what their kids are doing online. They're kind of enablers. And then on the other extreme are the parents who maybe really want to control things. They've got that lockdown contract of like what they're allowed to do and not. Maybe they have timers on their routers, or they're using apps that tell them what their kids are doing exactly online. And then there's the people in the middle. And the people in the middle are those ones that are seeking the knowledge. They may not know it, but they want to find out. They have that appetite to like find out more, but they don't know where to turn. So there's kind of two great sites that I always recommend. And one is Common Sense Media. It's a US-based company or organization, not a company. It's actually a not-for-profit. But that site is a wealth of information for parents on everything to do with technology. So whether it's you want to find reviews on apps or video games to find out if they're appropriate. My son actually just was using it as his convincing for me to buy him a video game. And he pointed out, and I forgot that they did this, reviews are on those sites, not just from like the company, Common Sense, but then they have parents and kids give reviews. So it's a really balanced perspective, and I like that a lot. And a similar, but they don't have as robust of review websites based in Canada is Media Smarts, and it's an Ottawa-based organization that does a really great job of putting out relevant information that's like, they'll have good articles on how to spot fake news, etc. So those are two great resources that I would point to.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing those. I know those are two great resources that I have used in my teaching. And especially, I feel like as we go on and depending in the situations that we are in the fall, that those sites definitely should be on teachers' list to check out, just for trying to look at, putting in some digital citizenship into the classroom. So thank you so much for that.
Hey, Nancy, sorry, maybe I missed it, but can you say the name of your book again? And if somebody would like to find a copy of it, and where would they go for that?
Sure. So my website is socialcitizens.ca, and you can find the book there. It's also available on Amazon. There, Dean's got, thanks, Dean. And yeah, it's a quick read, and I think a lot of the feedback that I've had from parents is they just like, it's a social citizens, a positive approach to parenting in a digital world. And that's exactly what it is I'm trying to show that opposite side of the spectrum of like, it isn't all bad and evil. And I use examples that try to demonstrate to parents of like, remember the first time. And I definitely remember my dad's reluctance to using a bank card for the longest time. And then when he finally caved and realized, oh, this can save me time. And actually my 83-year-old mother was forced to learn how to direct deposit a check using her app. And now she thinks that's like the greatest thing ever. So, we all take our time to adapt and I guess integrate technology in our lives. But quite often when we do, it's like that moment of, oh, now I get it. That's why it's cool.
Thanks, Nancy. You're an amazing guest. We'd like to give you the last word, if possible. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Something with your experience, or something you'd like to just, a burning question you'd like to leave people with, or something to ponder?
I think the number one thing is don't believe the headlines. And that's what media do. Media are trying to attract attention. And so they always go with a lead headline that is salacious, and it's going to hook you in, and it's going to make you believe that things are way worse than they are. So when it comes to your kids in tech or your kids in social media, I really strongly encourage you to look at other resources. So, Facebook is not evil. TikTok is not selling our private data to, who are they selling that my kid does music videos? Like, I'm not that concerned. So look for that balanced perspective. And the other thing I'd say is, I'm not trying to parent my kid and control everything. I'm trying to raise an adult. So we've got to learn and help our kids gain these skills so that they can make good choices. It doesn't automatically happen on their 18th birthday that they're going to make all the right choices. And believe me, mistakes have been made. With my son, and we work through them. And I think that, he's turning out all right. So I hope that all parents can recognize it's not going to be a perfect journey, but together, if you're open to it, you can learn along with your kids.
So well said. Nancy Smith, it's been an absolute blessing to have you on behalf of me and Curtis and Dean. You've been on our list since day one, and we just got you. You're a third guest. So it's been so nice having you for today's
Want you back, Nancy.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
You've been listening to 832 Sips, the podcast. I'm Curtis Barassa.
I'm Dean Vennerman. I thought I was going to be Mateo, but I'm Dean Vennerman.
And I'm Mateo DeMuro.
Cheers.
Until next time. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.